Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Talked about it a couple times. Tiny Dancer was on with Fareed Zakaria and Bill Maher's show, where he had a bunch of leftists trying to discuss how the left can be more effective electorally. So what sort of postures and positions they need to manipulate to do better electorally. Here was Fareed Zakaria talking about Dem-run cities, which is basically every city in America with more than 250,000 people. Same policies, different names, same results.
To be fair, this is actually...
I was being fair.
No, this is a huge Democratic Party problem. If you look at Democratic cities, they are terribly run. They have incredibly high taxes. It is impossible to build, so the cost of housing... Let me finish. I'll give you a chance. Cost of housing is crazy in places like New York and Chicago. If you look at Democratic states, you go look at New York versus Florida, okay? Roughly the same population. The budget of New York State is twice that of Florida. What do they have? Streets paved with gold? I live in New York. I pay the highest taxes in New York. You get nothing for it. And I think that is the image people have of the Democratic Party. Sure. Lots of taxes, lots of regulation, but nothing gets done.
Hey, and I live in L.A.
Right. A bunch of leftists in the audience applauding.
If the Democrats have to own this and realize the answer to everything is not more taxes, more regulation. People are fed up of that, and they feel that it isn't working.
Wow, Fareed Zakaria found religion. I haven't heard that in forever from Fareed Zakaria, and all of a sudden he's recognizing what we have long discussed, and any conservative, commonsensical person can observe and bear witness to the truth of what he's saying. So what are they going to do about it? Taxes and regulations is all they know. Tiny Dancer, though, says he's contemplating doing it one more time.
Yeah, he's not done yet. Speaking at the Economic Club in Chicago yesterday.
I'm not done with public service, and I'm hoping public service is not done with me.
Oh, sure. There's always one more grift in a Chicago politician, isn't there? For more on all this, we're pleased to be joined by Paul Vallas. He's a policy advisor for Illinois Policy Institute, IllinoisPolicy.org, former candidate for mayor and former CEO of CPS. Paul, thanks for being with us again. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
So what about what Fareed? I'm sorry.
It's Return of the Mummy.
What about what Fareed Zakaria had to say? I mean, heavens to Betsy, comparing Florida favorably to New York. I thought Florida is lorded over by a right-wing extremist.
Well, look, Rahm Emanuel is the poster child for bad mayors. I mean, he talked about three things. He talked about finances. Chicago and the school board, which he controlled, raised property taxes at historic increases during Rahm's tenure, and he still left Lightfoot with a financially mismanaged and struggling city. And of course, his battle with the Chicago Teachers Union, one can argue that Rahm actually radicalized the Chicago Teachers Union in part because he decided to demonize teachers. Amy, you'll remember his infamous front page headline quote in the Chicago Sun-Times: "Teachers got raises and kids got the shaft." So he literally was bested by Karen Lewis, and of course the core caucus, which currently dominates the school system and is strangling the school system, really achieved its ascendancy during Rahm Emanuel's administration. He also manipulated test scores. They returned to social promotion, talking about record graduation rates despite abysmal test scores. And then, of course, it was his mishandling of public safety. He eliminated over 2,000 police positions, which caused the murder rate to skyrocket. And it was only late in his second term did he restore those positions and begin to return police manpower to its previous strength, which brought the murder rate down. So at the end of the day, he was an absolute disaster to run as mayor. I told my wife when I heard about it, he may bring me out of retirement. But, he should not be lecturing anybody on effective municipal management.
Well, anything you want to announce here on the show this morning?
No. No, I'm afraid my wife is listening, and she's a former police officer, so I don't know where she hides her guns.
Well, are you thinking about running again, or are you foreclosing the possibility?
Well, you never foreclose the possibility, but I'm not planning on running. There are a number of individuals, and I don't want to put them on the spot now, who I think could run the city if the business community would close ranks. But I think the cabal, as I like to call it, they're going to seek some sort of a candidate that they can control, and Rahm Emanuel is like their favorite son. So I imagine if Rahm runs, there are some other names out there that have floated about.
What about Giannoulias?
Again, you have to ask yourself whether it's Giannoulias or an Arnie Duncan or anyone else. First of all, what have they done? What tough stands have they taken? What positions have they taken? Where have they been on school closures? Where have they been on the Chicago Teachers Union? Where have they been on the rise in crime? Where have they been on the degrading of the police department through this consent decree that has actually contributed to a rise in crime? Police are getting shot at 500% the rate they were getting shot at prior to the consent decree. Violent crime is rising because the police have lost their ability. They're so intimidated about going out and being proactive that violent crime continues to rise. So one must ask themselves, where have they been on these issues, and are they going to do the tough things that need to be done to get the city on the right track? And I think the biggest issue for the city is getting a handle on the Chicago public schools, and the fact that the CTU, if they have their way, and if this contract gets approved, are not only going to effectively financially bankrupt the school system, but they're also going to bankrupt the city.
Now, any regrets from your mayoral race? Because people were texting in and they were wondering if you wanted to walk back that you called Governor DeSantis a right-wing extremist. Remember when he was visiting Illinois?
Look, I went from 4% in the polls to 48.5% of the polls. I run in an extremely, this is a blue, ultra blue city, and at the time, DeSantis decided to come to town at the invitation of the FOP on election eve, and at the end of the day, I think I was justified in questioning the timing of that, but when you lose by that, let me also point out that he got trounced by Trump, so I wasn't the only one criticizing him. But at the end of the day, when you lose by 1.5 or 2 percentage points, there's probably 10 or 15 things that you might have done differently that could have made a difference.
Well, just on the DeSantis thing, if he comes on a different day, he's not a right-wing extremist. But if he comes at the invitation of FOP on a certain day, he is a right-wing extremist. I don't
I'm not going to relitigate. Look. You supported Willie Wilson in the primary, and then you bashed me during the general election when you knew clearly.
Yeah, I did.
And when you knew clearly the type of candidate Johnson was, and the type of mayor I could have been. I was on I was on the radio show co-hosting with Amy for any number of times. In fact, when I met with J.B. Pritzker for about an hour during the campaign to meet with them to talk about the issues, we spent 95% of our time with JB going through. He had a list of all the comments or negative criticism that I had made about him during he actually paid somebody to do this during the course of the campaign. So I took the right stands on public safety. I took the right stance on school choice. I took the right stance on financial accountability and ethics in government. So at the end of the day, I've always been consistent on the issues. So we can nip and tuck, or we can just try to relitigate. But at the end of the day, I think I had the courage to run. I ran for 427 days without stopping, and I came close to beating this guy. And Rahm Emanuel and others, like the Arnie Duncans of the world and the David Axelrods, they all sat on the sidelines, knowing full well that Johnson was going to be a disaster. And at the end of the day, they bear as much responsibility for him getting elected as any perhaps missteps that I may have made during the course of the campaign.
And so what was the conversation like ultimately with Pritzker? I mean, yeah, he went through comments that you made that you didn't like, that he didn't like. Well, I mean, that's it's tough. It's like comments I don't like, but but you have to be authentically you, and you don't say something different to somebody, and then turn around and say the opposite thing to somebody else, because that's not honest. And so what did you tell Pritzker in the face of his criticism when you were seeking his support?
Well, I never backed off my criticism, and he didn't support me. In fact, early on, I think he was supporting Chuy Garcia. And, the only difference between Chuy Garcia and the squad is his mustache. So at the end of the day,
Omar has a mustache. Omar has a mustache,
Stop
too.
it.
I think he was reluctant. I think he was reluctant to support Garcia because obviously his position on Israel. I mean, he really votes with the far left when it comes to anything Israel.
Well, so with respect to Pritzker, I mean, do you think he is getting a pass for what is happening in the city of Chicago?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, if I were Pritzker, I would reestablish the school finance authority and literally provide financial oversight over the schools, because the pathway to balancing the city's budget and to addressing the city issues is really through the Chicago Public Schools. I mean, that system needs to be radically decentralized. They're spending $30,000 a kid, and this new contract, even if they accept what Martinez has offered them, that contract's going to cost over $3 billion. It's going to give them big pay raises, add more members, do nothing to improve the quality of schools, and continue to stifle school choice, particularly charter schools. So at the end of the day, I've done op-ed pieces both in the Chicago Tribune and in Illinois Policy, calling on Pritzker to step up to the plate and to take action and to do what the Republican governors did, and to reestablish the school finance authority, to approve contracts, to do financial audits, to do the type of deep dive that needs to be done, because the Chicago Public Schools, the Chicago Public Schools have added 9,000 employees since 2019, despite losing 10% enrollment. They have 22,000 non-teaching employees. They have one employee for every 7.5 kids, and they're crying poor. So this is an extraordinarily mismanaged district. And the Chicago Teachers Union is no longer a labor union. They are a political party, a far-left political party, and they are the dominant force in the city. And the sooner people realize that the pathway to addressing the city issues is getting a handle on the schools and neutralizing the core caucus, which leads the Chicago Public Schools and dominates, the better off the city will be.
I mean, and Pedro Martinez is hanging on like a desperate lover. I mean, what is wrong? I mean, who's going to take his place, and when is he going to leave?
Well, it's a no-lose situation for him. I mean, he'll leave the Chicago Public Schools. People will congratulate him for standing up to the teachers union. But look, I just want to be frank. I mean, he caved on practically every issue. He caved on the capping of charters. Charters were blocked from using the closed school buildings, which could have generated money for the school district. He embraced their move against magnet schools and this so-called equity formula, which is really designed to pump money into schools that are near empty. So I think he was surprised as anyone when the Chicago Teachers Union turned on him, and when the mayor turned on him, since he had pretty much supported the implementation of the last record contract, which also did serious damage to the Chicago Public Schools. So, I'm at the point in my career, or I've always been at this point, so to speak, where I just try to speak the truth to these issues. And at the end of the day, that's why I've been doing as much writing as I've been doing for various venues to say that there is a pathway if the city seeks the right leadership. I mean, that's why we got organized to run candidates for the local school board. I mean, candidates that we endorsed won 6 or 7 of the 10 seats. The remaining seats will be up in 2 years. The local school board election is going to be as important as the mayor's election, because the schools control almost 60% of the property tax.
And speaking of the schools and finances, the city and the state's designation as sanctuary jurisdictions, how important is that to repeal?
Well, all you have to do is look at the numbers. I mean, look at the Auditor General's report about 1.6 billion spent on health care for illegal migrants, and the original proposal they had an estimated cost of $188 million. So so much for J.B. Pritzker lecturing the public about Trump authoritarianism. I mean, how many executive orders that they issued that kept businesses closed and that kept schools closed with devastating consequences? There were over 40 executive orders issued. So at the end of the day, I think it's been a disaster. But I have equal concerns. Chicago's become a sanctuary city for crime. I mean, at the end of the day, look, I mean, finally, we have a state's attorney who's a real prosecutor, but with pretrial release, CWB reports that I think since 2020, there has been they're estimating that there's been almost 400 individuals who were arrested for murder or attempted murder who were actually out on bail for other serious felony charges. They were either out on bail or they were on ankle bracelets or they were out on pretrial release. So at the end of the day, on any given day, between pretrial release, between the former state's attorney not prosecuting, as many as 90% of the individuals who have committed violent crime overall in aggregate are probably walking the streets. So, Chicago's got a sanctuary, has a sanctuary city when it comes to crime. They've got that problem that they have to deal with, and they are not, in fact, dealing with it.
Mm-hmm. And virtually a sanctuary city when it comes to reading and doing math at grade level. So sanctuary in many, many, many disturbing fronts. Paul Vallas, policy advisor for Illinois Policy Institute, IllinoisPolicy.org, former candidate for mayor and CEO of CPS. Paul, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Listen to Dan and Amy on your smartphone. Download the AM 560 mobile app today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
Are you having trouble hearing? Hearing loss can devastate the quality of your life. Now, there's an affordable fix for you or your loved one. Rated in the best hearing aids of 2024 by USA Today, Audion Hearing has the highest quality hearing aids at the lowest prices. Just